our 16th rites of passage, as Melody did. And what I want to share with you today will be brief. I say that now. 30 minutes later, it's like, where did that go?
One more thing.
The theme is light. Just light. The room is filled with light. The courtyard is light is flooding through the windows. Light surrounds us. Yesterday in our Heartfelt Living class, Monty, who's assisting, was saying how in pictures of saints and holy people in different world traditions, there's a light around. They call that an aureola. And it's typically seen as being representative of their holiness, their sanctity. But really what it's representing is they've had their lights turned on. We've had our lights turned on. We have this light coming out of us. We are surrounded by this light. I look at Reverend Deborah back there, and as we celebrate our kids, she's part of our heritage with our kids. She was our youth minister for many, many, many years until she was able to, she finished her education in ministry and moved into chaplaincy and hospice chaplaincy, and Reverend Marshall was so kind as to step up, and there was just a seamless transition and movement from one to the other in the leadership of this program. But I'm looking at Deborah because I always lose my mind over the emails she sends, and the footer, the quote that she has at the bottom, you know how people do with this, about how there's a thread that runs through everything, and whatever happens, you don't let go of the thread. Well, the thread is the light. The metaphors abound. It's all the same thing. There's a place where you can go in consciousness, and you know you can go there, and it's going to be responsive. And it doesn't matter what you call it, it doesn't matter what tradition you're from. When you know there's this thing that you can count on, you give it permission to respond to you in that way. When you know there's a higher power you can believe in, you give the higher power permission to serve you as best it possibly can. When our Catholic friends hold their rosaries and feel a devotion and work their way through the beads, saying the different prayers, and they feel like something powerful is coming of that, it is. And if one of our Catholic friends working through the rosary decides at some point that this is no longer meaningful to them for whatever reason, then it stops working. And it has nothing to do with the beads, and it has nothing to do with the prayers that are given. It has to do with the faith that's invested in the thing. You create your own rituals, and you invest faith in them, and they work for you. Belief is everything. And the light is the light of knowing that this is true, that belief is key. The light of knowing, because then the world can act up, the world can be strange, and it won't throw you permanently. Which brings me to, I asked the kids when we were in here for rehearsal at 10 this morning, I asked them if they heard of Daniel Johnston, and they said no, and I said I was glad because I wanted to say some things about him. Because you look for a story that is appropriate to young people heading out into the world, those who will be graduating from high school and heading out to college or the workforce, and everybody here has just started a new grade. And it doesn't matter if it's, it's like if you have a birthday and they'll say, well, is it an important one? Like is it 40 or 50 or is it a round number or something? Well, they're all places you haven't been before. And so if you move from 3rd to 4th grade, maybe they don't have a ceremony and you put on a cap and gown and all, but it's a place you've never been before. Well, you need to know that wherever you go, there's something there waiting for you that's got your back. It's got like they say in the military, it's got your 6 o'clock. It's going to support you. It's not going to fill out the paperwork for you. It's not going to take the test. It's not going to write the term paper. But it's going to remind you who you are. That you are this beautiful, capable being of light. No matter what anybody says, no matter what dramas you may go through in the course of developing human understanding, human relationships. So who is Daniel Johnston? Daniel Johnston, I had lost track of him and his story until he made his transition last week at the age of 58 in Waller, Texas. I never met the man. Waller's right up the road. There was an Apple commercial 5, 6 years ago, and it had this song called "The Story of an Artist" in this crackling, little, badly produced version with this really high-pitched voice singing and an out-of-tune, tinny little piano. The story of an artist growing old. This is the story of an artist growing old. And people say to the artist, why do you do what you do? Why don't you get a job? Why don't you do something, significant and grown up? You're not very good at what you do. We don't like what you do. No one's gonna like what you do, says the world to this artist. And we sit, says the world, and watch our TV. And that's how we have our fun. And the artist says, yes, but in your TV, I find no sun. And so I go out and I smell the flowers and I watch the dancing bees and I watch the world. And that's what an artist does. And that artist is me. So I saw this Apple commercial and I heard this little song and I thought, what is that? And anymore, it's not that hard to find out. So I did. The song is from 1982. And it sounds like it's badly produced because the guy who wrote it and sang it had a little tabletop keyboard and he recorded it into a cassette recorder with noise in the background and the air conditioner on and all the rest of this. And several other songs as well. And then he put out a little album, home produced, and then Kurt Cobain heard about it. And then Tom Waits heard about it. And then a number of Austin musicians heard about it. And they said, this guy, the production values are so simple, but this guy is opening his heart in a way that is almost too painful to hear in his observations of life. Come to find out, he was severely mentally ill. He had every kind of clinical textbook, psychological issue you could think of wrong with him. And physically ill. Multiple surgeries, multiple hospitalizations. They tried to put him on tour, and he'd make it for like 5 or 6 dates, and then he'd have to go back in the hospital. And this went on for years until he passed away last week. When he was a young man, and he put out that first song that he recorded into the cassette recorder, he was working at a McDonald's in Austin. It was the only job he could get. And he would tell the people he worked with, he'd say, I'm a singer. I'm a musician. I'm also a visual artist. And they would basically say, no, you're a line cook at McDonald's. He said, no, I have this. I know. This is going to be noticed one day. On 6th Street in Austin, there's a mural he painted. Actually, it's a small picture he painted, and they blew it up into a mural. It's Hi, how are you? You may have seen the pictures of this. It's sort of a frog with bug eyes on like antenna, and it says, hi, how are you, in this sort of a scrawl. He's been part of the Whitney Biennial in the visual arts showing. And he has influenced a whole generation, or even 2 generations now, of musicians. And this guy didn't stand a chance. He didn't stand a chance. Because there was way too much wrong with him. But you know what? He knew he had a light. It's not a religious thing. He knew he had a light. And he let his light shine. And the world perceived it. And the world made a path to it. Because what the world wants more than anything else is for the truth to be told. You can fix production values. You can tweak these things. We tweaked our bridge. We had a big bridge at first and it fell apart. And I think one year somebody tumbled out of the thing because the railing gave way, or they nearly did. And so we bought this at a garden store. It's a garden bridge. It goes over a koi pond or something, you know. We're constantly tweaking things like this, but that's not what matters. What matters is what you feel when you cross that thing. And you go from where you were to where you want to be, or where you are now, you know. You show up in this new space in this 4th grade, you've never been there before, and it's like, whoa, this is different. And you can't go back, but you can look back. And if you try to do something beautiful and wonderful in this world, the worst that's going to happen is that people with unhealed issues are going to tell you you can't because they feel they can't. And so what you want to do is just embrace them with love and understand they're speaking from their pain. And you get up and you sing your song. And you do your thing. So look up Daniel Johnston. There are probably going to be a number of concerts and celebrations of his life now that he's passed. He was written up heavily in the Chronicle. He's been on the radio and stuff. And he seldom, if ever, left his house in his later years. But something emanated from there that was this gift to all of us about, what's your story? Tell it. What's your song? Sing it. You've got something. That light will always hold you. And there's several people I know call this a spell. Does that alarm you? See you backing away in horror? Several people I know call this a spell or an incantation, what I'm about to do, but you want to call up the light, and your thoughts a little cloudy, a little confused, you don't know what to say? Try this. There is one life. There is one life. No matter how it appears to you, there is but one. All things reconcile into this one. All beings, all conditions, all circumstances. In this one, there is only now. And all past and all future melt into this now. This holy instant of now, at which I stand. And because there is only one, all power is right where I am. All wisdom, all kindness, all goodness, whatever I need, not only for my own use, but to redirect now out into the world. I know what to say and how to say it, what to do and when to do it. If there are godlings around me in need of support and encouragement, I know how to provide this, because it is not simply a function of my own opinion, my own ego, my own will. There is a power back of me. There is one that unites me with this other godling that I behold. So through me there flows truth and authenticity and hope. And I am a beneficial presence in the world to all who know me. Sometimes even without words, without actions, but simply in consciousness, just by knowing something. I may read a news story about a person or a group of people in some sort of conflict or trouble, and my heart goes out, but it goes out with a purpose. It goes out with a plan. It goes out surrounded in light to do that which needs to be done. And not a word has to pass between us, but this happens. I am guided, I am guarded, I am supported and encouraged and inspired and loved and loved and loved by the power that made me from within itself. It sees me as timeless, infinite, everlasting. I have what it takes because I am what it takes. And for this knowing and its manifestation in form everywhere I turn, today and in all time to come, each future unfolding now, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
So it is.